We are ready.
All right, Miss Lee, are you ready?
I'm ready as well.
And is it Dr. Lee or is it Dr. Lee?
Dr. Lee's fine.
All right. All right, good afternoon. We are on the record. It is September 17th, 2020, in the matter of the petition for early termination of probation of Ting Lee. This matter is being heard before the Board of Pharmacy, Department of Consumer Affairs, State of California. This is case number 202-009-0402. And my name is Marcy Larson. I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings presiding over the matter. We have a quorum of the board present this afternoon. And if the Deputy Attorney General in this matter would please state her appearance for the record.
Deputy Attorney General Summer Harrow.
All right, and Dr. Lee, you're here this afternoon as well. You're representing yourself, is that correct?
Yes.
All right, so I'm just going to briefly explain how the hearing is going to proceed this afternoon. And then if you have any questions, you can ask me at that time. You've filed a petition in this case for early termination of your probation. The board has the benefit of having all of the documents that you've submitted in support of your petition. The board is primarily concerned with the rehabilitation efforts that you've undertaken since your license was disciplined. And so if you can focus your testimony with regards to those efforts, that would be most helpful for the board. If there are particular documents that you've included with your petition package that you would like to draw the board's attention to, feel free to do that. The way that this will proceed is that Ms. Harrow, who represents the Attorney General in this matter, will identify the documents in the petition package, and then she will give the board board members a brief overview of the documents and of the history of your license and the discipline that was imposed. You will then be able to present your case. I will swear you in, and you can testify under oath and provide the board members with any information that you want them to consider for purposes of issuing their decision in this case. After you are done testifying on your own behalf, Ms. Harrow will have an opportunity to question you, and then the board members will also have an opportunity to question you as well. You understand?
I do. And I also have prepared a brief narrative/statement. When can I present that?
So you would present that once I swear you in, so that whatever you say is under oath. And so that means that the board members can consider what you say as evidence. They can only consider documents that are admitted into evidence and testimony for purposes of making a decision in this case. So anything that you have to say, we want to make sure that you're sworn in so that they can consider that information. All right?
All right.
All right. Any other questions before we get started?
None from me.
All right, then, Ms. Harrow, if you would please address the petition documents and provide an overview for the board members.
Thank you. I'm Deputy Attorney General Summer Harrow. I am appearing on behalf of the Attorney General pursuant to Government Code Section 11522, representing the people of the state of California. I'm here to assist the panel in my role is not adversarial, but is intended to protect the public interest. I'm here to ensure that the panel has adequate information from which to make a decision. I would first like to mark for identification and offer into evidence as Exhibit 1, the petition packet with accompanying documents. The board members and petitioner have been provided with a copy of the same set of exhibits. Exhibit 1 generally consists of the petition for early termination of probation, along with some attachments. Those attachments include 2 work performance evaluations, 5 letters of support and recommendation. Of those 5 letters, 4 are by colleagues of petitioner, and 3 of those colleagues are licensed pharmacists. The 5th letter is by a former colleague. The last attachment to the petition are the certificates of continuing education that petitioner completed that occurred from June 2018 to October 2019, totaling 33 hours. Also in Exhibit 1 is the board's December 12th, 2016 decision adopting the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order. Finally, there's the agreement to electronic recording of hearings. At this time, I offer that packet into Exhibit 1.
Right, Dr. Lee, the petition package, those were documents that you submitted in this case, I believe. Do you have any objection to any of those documents?
No objection.
Right. Exhibit 1 is admitted. And then I've marked for identification as Exhibit 2, the notice of hearing in this matter. That was the September 8th, 2020 letter that was sent to you, Dr. Lee, that provided you information about the hearing today. I've marked that for jurisdictional purposes. Do you have any objection to that document, Dr. Lee?
None.
Ms. Haro, any objection?
No objection.
Right. Exhibit 2 is admitted for jurisdictional purposes. All right, Ms. Haro, if you would continue, please.
Thank you. I will now provide a brief summary of petitioner's license history with the board. On August 16th, 2005, the board issued pharmacist license number RPH 57363 to petitioner. On April 27th, 2016, the board filed accusation number 5358 against. The accusation alleged 6 causes of disciplinary action against petitioner. Those were for failure to implement corresponding responsibility, filling erroneous or uncertain prescriptions, gross negligence, failure to keep complete records, non-compliant furnishing of a controlled substance after surrender of DEA registration, and furnishing a controlled substance without a valid prescription. The accusation arose from petitioner's conduct as the pharmacist in charge and treasurer of Spectrum Pharmacy, Irvine, in 2012. In September of 2012, while petitioner was the pharmacist in charge, the Drug Enforcement Agency and the Long Beach Police Department performed an inspection at Spectrum Pharmacy, Irvine, which resulted in the pharmacy surrendering its DEA registration. In October 2012, a pharmacist at Spectrum Pharmacy, Irvine, admitted to the DEA and Long Beach Police Department that he had filled multiple controlled substance prescriptions that were brought in by one person and had been written by the same doctor for multiple different patients. That staff pharmacist further admitted that the person who had brought in the prescriptions would contact the pharmacist to see if controlled substances were in stock before he came in with those multiple prescriptions. Also, in October 2012, the board conducted an inspection of the pharmacy and discovered the following. The board inspector discovered that a controlled substance prescription had been filled and dispensed at the pharmacy after it had surrendered its DEA registration. They found that the pharmacy dispensed prescriptions that had come from pain clinics all over Orange County, including from a doctor's office that was 47 miles away. The pharmacy dispensed prescriptions for multiple patients that were all dropped off and picked up by an unknown driver. The pharmacy frequently dispensed prescriptions issued in sequence and several months in advance that had been written by the same doctor for the same drug, same dose, same directions for use, and for different out-of-area patients. The pharmacy dispensed drugs to multiple patients with fake or non-existent addresses. The pharmacy dispensed oxycodone without a valid prescription. The pharmacy filled prescriptions for patients who were habitual doctor and pharmacy shoppers. And the petitioner told the board inspector that it was not the pharmacist's role to discuss other potential medications with patients. And the petitioner also informed the inspector that it did not contact prescribers to obtain patient diagnoses or alternatives for medications that had been tried and failed before dispensing controlled substance prescriptions. Further, the petitioner failed to provide complete records of disposition of controlled substances to the board inspector for 58 prescriptions for the time period from January 2001 to October 2012. In September 2016, Petitioner entered into a stipulated settlement, and in doing so, she admitted that if the disciplinary action of accusation number 5358 proceeded to hearing, that the complainant could establish a factual basis for the charges in that accusation. The stipulation provided for the revocation of license stayed on 5 years probation pursuant to the following terms: a suspension for 60 days, obey all laws, quarterly reports to the board, interviews with the board, cooperate with board staff, continuing education, notice to employers, no supervision of interns serving as pharmacist in charge, serving as designator, representative in charge, serving as director, representative in charge, or serving as a consultant. Probation terms also reimbursement of board costs and probation monitoring costs. The status of petitioner's license shall remain current. It provided terms for license surrender while on probation or suspension, required notification of a change in name, residence address, mailing address, or employment, terms providing for the tolling of probation and violation of probation and the completion of probation. Probation also required remedial education, supervised practice, no ownership of licensed premises, a tolling of the suspension, and ethics course. On December 12th, 2016, the board adopted the stipulation as its order, and the decision became effective January 11th, 2017. Petitioner is now petitioning for early termination of her probation, and because the burden is on the petitioner, I have no further statements but reserve the right to question petitioner. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Dr. Lee, I'm going to swear you in. If you would please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I'm sorry, you're muted, so I couldn't hear you.
I do.
All right, please state and spell your name.
Ting Lee, Tingli.
Right, so Dr. Lee, now is your opportunity to present your case. As I explained before, you indicated that you have a written statement that you want to read, and that's fine, but please just remember to read slowly. Sometimes when people read, they read faster than when they talk, and so we want to make sure that that all the board members can hear you and understand you as well. All right?
Sure, I will.
All right.
Thank you. So good afternoon. My name is Ting Lee. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. When I first received the Bright Peak accusation documents sometime in early 2016, I thought the board must have made a huge mistake. How can I be accused of wrongdoing when, as a pharmacist, when I have never worked at a pharmacy or dispensed a single prescription? Fast forward to 2020, my perspective on that has completely changed. You see, I was a co-owner of an independent pharmacy, and while I saw myself as a silent partner at the time, I know now that there is no such thing. Through participation in ethics courses, law CEs, and corresponding responsibility training, some of which were mandatory, others I sought out, I have come to fully understand the responsibility of all associated licensed individuals in the practice and operations of the community pharmacy, and exactly where I failed. I failed for not being there to ensure all laws and regulations were adhered to. I failed to uphold corresponding responsibility and to ensure that I took the necessary steps and that the staff took necessary steps to evaluate legitimate and appropriate use of prescriptions. Currently, I work as a pharmacist in a managed care health plan setting. My job involves administering the Medicare Part D and California Medicaid pharmacy programs, which includes activities like formulary drug coverage development, clinical drug review, drug trends, and policy. This has been my area of practice, and full-time work since receiving my license and through present day. I understand the board's first and foremost concern is public safety. I would like to state I pose no harm to consumer safety. I've had no disciplinary actions before or since the events described. I've fully complied with all the terms of my probation. I've learned a tremendous amount around what happened and why, and I'm ready to share it with others. And lastly, as a matter of practicality, I don't work or own a pharmacy. I work in a non-board licensed facility. The reason why I'm seeking early termination is my desire to teach and train. Pharmacy practice has expanded way beyond the traditional setting. Healthcare reform, drug cost, and Medicare Medicaid policy is the work that I have extensive experience in. Also, given my experience with the disciplinary action process, I feel that I'm in a unique position to train and teach others. One of the restrictions around my probation is not being able to precept or supervise interns. Based on my letters of support that you have as part of your packet, you can see that I was heavily involved in internship rotations and residency training, and I was an adjunct volunteer professor at the School of Pharmacy at USC. So it is my hope that through training new pharmacy professionals, we can help advance the role of pharmacists and help train the next cohort of pharmacy leaders in a changing healthcare landscape and to enrich the lives of the people we serve. And that concludes my statement, and thank you for your time and review.
Dr. Lee, I'm going to allow Ms. Haro to ask you any questions. And then, as I mentioned, the board members may have questions for you. And then I will also allow you to add anything additional that you want to add to your testimony at the very end. Sometimes what happens is that when you're asked questions, you think of additional things you want to add. So I'll be sure to ask you if you have anything else you'd like to add. All right?
Sure.
All right, Ms. Haro.
Thank you. Dr. Lee, you have been the pharmacist in charge at Spectrum Pharmacy at the time of the instance giving rise to the accusation, correct?
If I could provide some additional information around that, when we filled out the paperwork to start the pharmacy with my partner and myself, I was listed as the PIC. At some point in 2010, I switched out of that role, knowing that that was not a role I could commit to. I understand that the accusations state otherwise. When I went through the process at the time, I just decided not to challenge it because I don't know what significance that would make because I was still the co-owner.
Do you have an understanding of what the obligations are of a pharmacist in charge?
At this time, yes.
What are your understanding, or what is your understanding of what those obligations are?
The PIC is responsible for all laws and regulations pertaining to pharmacy practice. So the pharmacy needs to be at the site and to ensure that.
Do you have an understanding now of what corresponding responsibility is?
Yes, I sure do.
Can you tell us what your understanding of that is?
Yeah, sure. Kind of in my own words, the pharmacist's role is not simply making sure the right medication gets into the right drug, gets into the right bottle to the right patient. It goes way beyond that. And it's a duty to ensure prescriptions are being dispensed for appropriate use. And there's a series of steps and flags and process that the pharmacist needs to go through to make that determination.
Can you tell us, in your words, why the duty of corresponding responsibility is important for a pharmacist?
I think it ultimately comes to public safety without going through those series of steps and ensuring corresponding responsibility. There is room for unsafe practice and unsafe utilization of pharmaceuticals.
What do you think gave rise to the problems that were happening at Spectrum Pharmacy?
That's a tough one to answer for me. I learned of this kind of third hand. I do not have firsthand experience with it. The information that I garnered from the specifics of how it was happening in the pharmacy is the same that you have, which is from reading the accusation.
Do you have any interest in being a pharmacist in charge in the future?
Capital N-O. But realistically, I think if I were to be one, I would probably be the safest and one of the most knowledgeable folks to be a pick.
Thank you. No further questions, Judge.
All right, thank you. All right, I'm now going to open up questions to our board members, starting with our president. Any questions for Dr. Lee?
No questions, Your Honor.
All right. Ms. Vela, do you have any questions for Dr. Lee?
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Lee, thank you for appearing before us today, and I appreciate your statement and the forthrightness of what you had to say. So when I look at your application, it looks like you haven't been employed since 2017, but it sounds like from your testimony you are currently working. Is that correct?
I am currently working for a health plan in Orange County.
Okay. Second question is, once again, on your application, not trying to do a gotcha, but question 14 says, are you now on probation or parole for any criminal or administrative violation in this state or any other state? And you checked no. Normally, I think that the correct answer there, because of this case, would be yes. Because I think you are. You have a. It looks like you're reading it.
Oh, yes. So.
Okay. Okay.
I read that as criminal, but followed right underneath number 15, I marked yes as having currently being under disciplinary action against my pharmacist license. So
Okay.
that's how I wanted to communicate that, and that's how I interpreted the question.
Okay, no problem. I just wanted to make sure that you understood. So you're no longer a part owner of that pharmacy. You sold your.
The pharmacies are closed. I'm no longer affiliated with any pharmacy. And as I said earlier, I work in a non-pharmacy setting.
Yep. And the at the time, the pick was your partner or the pharmacist that worked there?
I am actually not 100% sure. It was either the co-owner, my partner, or a staff pharmacist that she had hired.
So what management did you have with that pharmacy? I understand you were a silent partner, but so you just threw money at it and you did nothing, or did you have any action management input into that pharmacy, even behind the scenes? I understand you didn't actually ever work in the store itself. Can you just explain what your position was as part owner?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, and I think it's a good question for other young pharmacists out there. My thought at the time was, well, I just got my license. This would be a fun project to start with my classmate / friend. And while I had just started my full-time job in a managed care area, thought, well, if this takes off, I could surely switch over and work. But the pharmacy didn't, it was not an income thing, and it never really took off. And I was completely removed from all operations or any aspect of it.
So you were just basically an investor.
Yes.
That's all I have. Thank you very much again for your statement and coming here before us on WebEx today.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Lee, I just want to follow up on a question that Ms. Beal asked you, and to just get some clarification about your current employer. I'm looking at the first page of your petition, and it says from June 2014, it looks like to October 2015, and then it also says present Cal Optima Health Plan. Is that your current employer?
Yes.
And that has been your employer essentially since 2014?
Yes.
And that's the managed healthcare plan that you've been referring to?
Yes, but all the other companies that are listed in that section are also of the same nature, so managed care health plan.
All right, other than Cal Optima Health Plan, that's your only employer right now?
Yes.
Okay, all right, I just wanted to make that clarification. All right, Dr. Serpa, any questions for Dr. Lee?
Just a comment for Dr. Lee. Thank you for your poised presentation and words of warning and caution for investors or co-owners. It's a great lesson learned.
All right, Mr. Brooks, any questions for Dr. Lee?
No questions at this time, Judge.
All right, thank you. Dr. Butler, any questions for Dr. Lee?
Yes, I just have one question. So when finishing school, Stephen and Nina, they weren't real close friends. They were just associates, friends from school that you just wanted to invest with.
I wouldn't consider them close friends. We knew each other pretty much the whole duration of schooling. So I would consider them close friends.
Okay, so so you did not have any conversations at all with them about what was happening at the pharmacy?
No.
Okay.
And that's part of, upon reflection, that's a lot of what went wrong.
Okay. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Patel, any questions for Dr. Lee?
Questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Sanchez, any questions for Dr. Lee?
No questions.
And I think I skipped Dr. O. I think I skipped Dr. O.
Thank you. I just have one question. I think it's kind of following Cheryl's question, but what kind of relationship did you have with the other you are involved with? And what are you still stay in touch? How did that all evolve now?
I'm not sure if I heard the question fully. It was a little bit broken up. I think it was a question relating to the relationship of the partners. Like I said, we were friends and we were classmates all throughout pharmacy school. Do we stay in touch now? Not so much.
Hey, Judge, this is Ryan Brooks. I do have a question.
Yes, I still have to get to Dr. Wong
Oh, sorry.
and Mr. Weiss too. No, that's fine. I just wanted.
Is it Dr. Wong's turn?
So Dr. Wong, and then we'll do Mr. Brooks, and then Mr. Weiss.
Okay. Yeah, I do have a couple questions. So So she's just a regular investor, but she's not involved in manage the pharmacy at all, right?
That's correct.
And
I have my full-time job in a different setting.
okay, so you just like a stockholder, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Dr. Wong?
No, that's it.
All right, Mr. Brooks.
And so thank you for coming on, Dr. Lee. I appreciate your time. My question is back to your investment. Did you ever visit the pharmacy that you put money in, and how much did you put into this pharmacy?
The investment was minimal. There were a second round investment around the way because the pharmacy opened. It was during the middle of the recession, so just to pay the folks and keep things running. I remember putting in a second round. I don't remember the exact amount. And what was the other part of the question?
Mr. Brooks, you're muted.
It does look, I'm not muted. Can you hear me?
You're not muted now. Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Roughly, approximately, how much was your investment?
Maybe 20,000 to 30,000. It was not to purchase. It was just to buy the computer systems and put in the countertops and that kind of stuff. It was a new pharmacy.
And so what I'm hearing is you put in about $20,000 to $30,000 of your own money coming out of college. That's a lot of money for a new student. It would seem like you would have visited the pharmacy, looked at the books to see how they were doing, how they were generating the income. Did you do any of that?
I did not visit the pharmacy because the pharmacy hours were pretty much the same time as my hours.
Hold on just a second. We've got a lot of background noise, so just let's have everybody mute except for Dr. Lee. There we go. That's better. Dr. Lee, if you could just start again, please.
Okay, I think the question was around if I visited the pharmacy or routinely checked in on it.
Correct.
No, I didn't. Just for practical reasons, the pharmacy was open during pretty much the exact same time that I was working full time.
I think the other question was, did you check any of the books, look into any of the accounting of what was going on there?
I did not, and again, it was open during the time right in the middle of recession. So it was communicated to me that things are really slow, and I thought that made sense.
All right, thank you. No further questions.
All right, and then Mr. Weiss, any questions?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Dr. Lee, if you could answer for me, it seems that there were 3 pharmacists in charge, but you were identified as the pick, and you didn't quite accept that when you agreed to the settlement. What was the difference in your understanding between what you agreed upon in the stipulation?
I'm not sure if I understand the question. Just like I shared before, when we started the application process, I was listed as a pick. That was in roughly 2008. And at some point in 2010, I removed myself from being the pick, knowing that I was, developing my career in a different field and was enjoying that work, and knowing that I wasn't able to commit to the pharmacy. So after that, who else was the pick? I'm not, and the timing around that, I'm not entirely sure.
So how was it that you thought you were no longer the pick? What happened there?
Because there was a form that you have to fill out and submit to the board to remove yourself from being the pick.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any further questions from our
Your
board?
Honor, I have a question now.
Yes.
So if you submitted the form to get yourself out of being the pick in 2010, why were you still listed as the pick in 2016?
I was not the pick in 2016.
But that's what you agreed to in the stipulation. I mean,
Yes, and that's that's factually, I think you can verify that, but I did not challenge it because I wasn't sure what that would ultimately mean in the grand scheme of things, because I'm still co-owner and I'm still a licensed individual with responsibility to the pharmacy. So that was not
so
something
you didn't,
I challenged, even though it was, to me, it's an error.
and you didn't talk to the other owners, your friends, about who was operating as a pick or anything like that?
At that time, I think it was whoever was listed on the board's website. I didn't see the significance of that at the time to
Okay.
dwell into who was picked when. I just thought, well, I'm a licensed individual, co-owner. I have the same responsibility.
But you learned differently later on, right?
Yes, well, there's lots of things learned. This was quite a journey.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions from our board members?
I have one more question. This is Song. Dr. Lee, do you feel like, I mean, you put in tens of thousands of dollars, and I personally, it's something that it's hard for me to wrap my mind around, that you weren't really involved in day-to-day operations. But do you feel like, were you able to gain financially for the time that you were an owner of this place?
No, and again, this was during a recession. This location, at the time when we started, we thought it had a lot of potential, but it's actually at that time in a very undeveloped area of Orange County. So no, this was not, did not pan out to be a financial gain.
All right, any further questions from our board members? All right, Dr. Ling, anything else you would like to add?
Was that directed towards me?
Yes, Dr. Ling, anything else you'd like to add?
Okay, just a very brief closing statement. I'd like to say that I'm fully cognizant of my wrongdoing. I ask the board to take into consideration of the fact that there was no direct harm to any individual as a result of the events described in the accusation. I am on year 4 of 5 of the probation period, and I'm not sure what the value or significance of me to continue being under probation, and what the value is for the board to continue using the resources to monitor me as such. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Ms. Haro, any closing remarks?
Nothing further. I submit.
All right, Dr. Lee, is the matter submitted for the board's consideration?
Yes.
All right, the matter is submitted and the record is closed. The board will be making a decision in closed session. You will receive a written decision from the board sometime in the future, Dr. Ling.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I will turn it back over to our moderator.
And I'm actually going to turn it back over to the president.
Yes, that would be me.
All right.
Okay, so next, well, I guess we now have to go into closed session to deliberate and to cover, well, the 3 things that we're going to be covering are deliberation on the disciplinary matters and petitions, and to discuss pending litigation and to consider the preparation, approval, grading, or administration of one or more licensing examinations. So, that being said, we're done with this portion. And as I mentioned earlier, we will be going back into open session to close the meeting, but it will not be on webcast. I mean, it won't be on the WebEx. So anybody that is not part of the closed session probably should terminate their presence at this time. Thank you for participating, everybody. And you all know where to go for the closed session, members. Is that correct?
Yes, we just dial in, right?
Right.
Can someone send out that dial-in number again, please?